I'm in Corfu town, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and capital of an island truly unlike any other, with its beautifully preserved Venetian architecture and its rich history, filled with Italian, English, French, and Russian influences.
We put plenty of parsley.
I'll cook sofrito with one of the island's best-known local cooks.
Everything is covered.
And in the kitchen, I'll make tsigarelli, braised greens with tomato and feta.
I want to convince you that you can even eat greens as a main course.
Bourtheto, a garlicky fish and leek stew.
Ready for Operation White Grouper removal.
And pastitsio venetsianiko.
The whole idea of the pastitsio venetsianiko is make something very special, basically out of leftovers. Join me on my Greek table as I explore the fascinating food and culture of Corfu.
I am so excited to be in Corfu today, the capital of the Ionian Islands off the western coast of Greece. Corfu is historically one of the most fascinating islands, a palpable and delicious mix of Greek and Italian food and culture. Its capital is an architectural gem, its interior lush and fertile, its beaches legendary. No wonder Corfu was also the site of one of the earliest Club Meds in the world. Homer mentions Corfu's lush fruit orchards, which greeted Odysseus when he was shipwrecked here, so close to home in Ithaca. Corfu was the first Greek territory to fall to the Romans, who flocked to it as a holiday playground. Nero even gave a recital here with his famous fiddle. Corfu became part of the Byzantine Empire when Rome fell in the 5th century AD. Then when Byzantium fell to the Crusaders, Corfu turned to Venice for protection. The Venetians ruled this emerald island for more than 400 years and left an indelible stamp on its culture and cuisine. So did others, most notably the English in the 19th century. I'm meeting up with Vasiliki Karounou, a restaurateur and chef who is passionate about her island's food traditions.
I think we call this John Dory in English.
John Dory, exactly.
John Dory fish in English.
Traditional food has a lot of quality in it. You need good ingredients, you need good techniques, either to preserve or to prepare.
She's giving me Culinary Corfu 101 with a walk through the town's vibrant markets.
The famous kumquats
of course.
Corfu. You don't eat these raw?
You do, but you eat only the skin.
You eat the skin?
Yes, the inside is sour.
Bitter.
Yeah, sour and bitter. Yeah, go ahead. Try to avoid the juice.
That's amazing. So this is the famous
Alexis.
Alexis,
The traditional Corfu butter.
A famous Corfu butter.
Famous, exactly.
Voutiro Kerkiras, Corfu's butter, is esteemed all over Greece. A traditional cow's milk butter with a slightly fermented taste, it gets its rich yellow color from the variety of local flora on which Mr. Alexis' animals graze. His shop is so famous that Aristotle Onassis used to have his butter flown to Paris from Corfu because Jackie O liked it for breakfast.
I love butter.
This is Lazarus.
Okay.
They produce all these nice traditional sweets.
And this is the mandorla.
Mandolato.
Mandolato.
Every bite from this gorgeous island is rich with the taste of history.
So now we go this way.
This way.
This way. We're always looking for new ways to cook vegetables, especially greens. They're so full of nutrition, amazing minerals and vitamins. Sometimes the most innovative recipes
are the ones that have the longest traditions, and that's exactly what I'm making today. And it's basically stewed greens. I'll be using fennel bulb, coarsely chopped, thickly sliced red onions, and some of this beautiful wild fennel. A little bit of olive oil, getting my fennel in first. The red onions go in next. I'll add a little salt to this, and I'm gonna cover it so that the onions wilt and kind of steam in the olive oil. It's looking good. A little bit of paprika. When you cook spices in hot oil, you actually help bring out all the essential oils in the spices. Getting the garlic in here next. There's a lot of it. The tomato paste goes in next. Tomato paste will also act as a thickener. When all the greens go in here and they start letting out all their liquid, it'll come together and it'll be really nice and dense. And my first green is Swiss chard, and it's a very, very rough chop on it. You want to do this in increments so that it wilts and then you keep adding more. Now you can use any sweet green in here. You can even use a few bitter greens, but you really want the sweet greens to be the basis for the tsigarelli. Things like Swiss chard and spinach and sweet sorrel, sweet dandelion. I'm gonna actually cover the wok and let this cook down in its own steam for a few minutes. Let's see what's going on in here. Toss them in the olive oil, get some of that onion mixed into this. This is a dish that I like to serve on its own, or beautiful bourtheto, a fish dish from the island of Corfu. I'm gonna add the spinach next. If you wanted to add something a little bit more peppery, you could throw in some mustard greens or even some collards. Let's get some of this beautiful, fresh wild fennel chopped. If you can't find this in the States, you can use fennel bulb. You can enhance it with a little bit of ouzo or just even some crushed fennel seeds, just to get a little bit more of that nice, refreshing anise flavor. Let's see what's going on with the greens. They're glistening. This beautiful emerald green color on the spinach is exactly what we want. This kind of cooking, these delicious greens, to me, represent the heart and soul of the Greek kitchen. Simple, finely chopped parsley and the dill. This is looking perfect. It's like the greens are just tender and still have that beautiful, deep emerald green color. And the onions have been nicely colored with all the paprika and the tomato paste. A little bit of extra virgin Greek olive oil right over the top. Let's taste this. And a little bit of feta cheese. I want to convince you that you can even eat greens as a main course. The greens still have a little bit of crunch to them, and I'm getting this wonderful, like, whole herbal palate. It's really sweet, actually. It's delicious. And what I'm pairing it with today is a Greek island wine from Evia, and it's a blend of Viognier, which is a French grape, and Assyrtiko. It has this beautiful minerality, which matches the mineral quality in the greens, but also this lovely acidity, so that everything is really nicely balanced. Learn how to say my favorite word in Greek, which is horta, greens, and make a beautiful dish like this, tsigarelli, and I think you'll start to look at something very basic in an exciting and new way.
Sofrito means slowly fried. It can be prepared with any meat.
Okay.
And then we cut it in smaller pieces.
And I know that this dish is flavored with garlic and vinegar and parsley.
A dish with very strong flavor.
Like much of Corfu's cooking,
Yes.
I've noticed.
Yes, all the flavors are very intense.
A lot of pepper.
Yeah,
And salt?
and salt. First we flour the meat. at least, one batch. Corfu cuisine has received many international influences.
The Venetians,
Exactly.
Of course, soffrito is an Italian word.
But also French influence, a big influence from Malta. Now we need to start setting up a casserole. We put plenty of parsley because it prevents sticking on the bottom. So we just make a layer.
So parsley on the bottom, then garlic and parsley,
Exactly.
then meat, then garlic and parsley. Okay.
Exactly.
And the garlic is always in these big slices.
Yes, I mean, the idea is to see the garlic.
Right.
We add the wine and the vinegar, white vinegar,
Okay.
1/4 of a cup.
That's a lot of vinegar.
We add the wine.
You're deglazing the pan basically to get all the good stuff out.
Exactly. So if it's needed, we add some hot water. And then we just add it to the meat. Not everything is covered, so we need some hot water. You see, that's the amount.
That's
now,
the amount. Okay, so
if
it barely covers.
Exactly. It cooks slowly, and the sauce become thick and nice.
And how long will this take now?
It will take about half an hour.
I'm making one of the absolute classic dishes of the Ionian. It's called bourtheto, and it's basically a very, very light fish stew. I've got this beautiful white grouper in front of me, sphyrida in Greek, and it's also one of the most sustainable fish in the Mediterranean. It is a prize among spear fishermen. Leek or leek and onion are always part of bourtheto in Corfu. Get this softened up. The name bourtheto comes from the Italian word brodeto, which means broth, and that's essentially what we're making here, this beautiful, rich fish broth. This doesn't take very long to cook. The whole dish takes about 15 or 20 minutes, depending on the size of your fish. And we want a fair amount of garlic in this. What goes into this next is a little bit unusual cayenne pepper and a little bit of paprika. And there's a reason for that. Black pepper was reserved only for the aristocratic class because it was very expensive. But people could grow paprika peppers, they could grow red peppers to make their own spicy mix. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. So I've got cayenne in here. I'm adding a little bit of paprika. And the addition of both of those give this dish this really deep red color, which is very, very characteristic of bourtheto. The next thing I'm going to add to this is a little bit of tomato paste, which will make this even deeper and richer, and it'll give it a very, very nice, intense flavor. There are a few different variations of bourtheto in the Ionian. One calls for octopus, and another, which belongs to the absolute, sort of poorest of the poor in that part of Greece, is made without any protein at all. It's just a stewed leek with paprika and cayenne and a little bit of tomato. I just want to add a little bit of salt to this. That will help soften the leeks even more. And the fish is going in next. This is going in very, very carefully. Next in is a little bit of red wine, dry red wine. A little bit of water, just to keep it nice and moist. And I'm gonna cover this and basically steam this big, beautiful white grouper in this delicious, thick, robust liquid. This is gonna cook for about 20 minutes, very low heat. The bourtheto is definitely ready. I want you to see how beautiful and thick the sauce is now and how perfectly cooked and tender this beautiful white grouper is. Ready for Operation White Grouper removal. Very, very carefully. Get some of this beautiful pan juice in here. Don't be afraid to cook fish that is whole and still has the head on, because actually the tastiest part is right here in the cheek, especially on a beautiful fish like this. Time to taste the bourtheto and some of the delicious leek mixture just around it. This is a very rustic dish. made with a very aristocratic fish. Let's get a little taste. It's so tender. It just melts in my mouth. It's really peppery, but not in a way that overwhelms my palate. The delicacy of the grouper works really well with the pungency in this beautiful leek sauce. The tomato paste holds everything together, and the red wine gives it this beautiful, fruity almost undertone. I'm pairing this today with a rosé from northern Greece, from the area of Epanomi, made with the xinomavro grape, with this citrusy red grapefruit kind of flavor, and it holds up beautifully to the pepperiness of this dish. Isihian.
I think our sofrito is ready.
Ooh. Smells really amazing.
We add some lemon to it. Some people say that sofrito is good, but the sauce of sofrito, it's amazing. And then, of course, some more parsley. Diane, taste.
Okay, I'm looking forward to this.
Actually, I can't wait to taste myself.
Okay. You get this very rich but subtle flavor out of very few ingredients.
The wine, the vinegar.
The vinegar's soft. It's not sharp. It kind of like carries the pepper.
You feel the pepper?
You feel the pepper for sure. It's peppery, it's garlicky, but not overwhelming. Vasiliki, thank you. This was amazing. Be well and keep cooking. I first discovered this recipe many, many years ago while I was researching a book on the regional cuisines of Greece. It's called Pastitsio venetsianiko. It's a pastry-cloaked baked pasta dish. I'm mixing all the dry ingredients first. I just added a teaspoon of salt, and I'm adding a little bit of sugar. And I've got something here that you don't see very often in any sort of Greek pastry or Greek phyllo dough. Beautiful, fresh butter. Just this fact alone speaks tomes about the aristocratic past of Corfu. You want to make sure the butter is really cold. Basically, what we want to do is work the butter very, very quickly into the flour. What you want to end up with is a mixture that is very, very granular. And you want to work fast so that you're not overworking the butter and flour, so that you end up with a very nice, firm, but flexible and elastic pastry dough. And I think you can see the texture, how granular it's become. Add a little bit of cold water to this by the tablespoon, and just sprinkle that in. And this will typically absorb anywhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of a cup of water. And you want to work fast, and you can see it starting to come together. It suddenly got sticky, and that's exactly what we want. You want it to be sticky enough to hold together, but not so sticky that it actually sticks to your hands and won't roll out very easily afterwards. So I'm gonna divide this in half. The first ball, which I want to be a little bit bigger, because this is what will line the bottom of my springform pan. So basically now, I just want to flatten this out a bit and get it into the fridge to chill for about a half hour so that the butter can get cold again and the dough will stay together when I roll it out. There are many steps to a classic pastitsio venetsianiko, and one of them is the making of bechamel. I'm melting butter. The first step is to make a roux. As soon as this starts to melt and bubble up, I'll add the flour. Whenever you make a roux, you want to use your eyesight, but also your sense of smell. If you don't cook it enough, you end up with almost a pasty flour smell. Adding my milk. You have to keep stirring the whole time. This is thickening, and I'm about to add the cream and a touch of salt. It'll be really thick, and I'm gonna add 2 egg yolks to it. And that is the Greek version of bechamel. Whisk egg yolk into this really quickly. This is ready. I'm gonna keep this covered with a kitchen towel to let it cool. And the reason I cover it is to keep a skin from forming on top, but I want the steam to escape so that this can cool down.
I'm just cutting through this peppery pork salami. The whole idea of the Pastitsio venetsianiko is not to let anything go to waste and make something very special, basically out of leftovers. This is a really interesting piece of charcuterie. It's called numbulo. It's a pork loin that's been marinated in red wine and black pepper. It's the classic charcuterie from the island of Corfu. The next thing that goes into the filling is a little bit of cooked country sausage, seasoned with a little bit of black pepper, a little bit of shredded chicken, kefalotiri cheese. This is a sharp yellow sheep's milk cheese, and one last local cheese from the Ionian, and it's called adotiri zakinthu. The texture is much firmer, and the flavor is much, much sharper. It's one of those really good stinky cheeses. A little bit of paprika goes in here. I'm just gonna mix this by hand really carefully. This is going to go into the springform pan. All the different parts for the Pastitsio venetsianiko are ready. The next and last step is to roll out this beautiful pastry. It's been in the fridge. It's nice and chilled and firm. This is the larger of the two circles, and I want to roll it out to be a little bit bigger than the circumference of my springform pan. Try to get it so that the edges that are overhanging evenly. I'm gonna roll out the second piece of pastry and then put everything together and finish the Pastitsio venetsianiko. I wanna get about half the pasta mixture in here. Honestly, the easiest way to do it is just by hand. And spread that evenly around. A little bit of the bechamel. So we're getting about half the bechamel in here. And just because it's not rich enough, some eggs. And I just like to place them kind of decoratively. It's like a little surprise when you cut through this. The rest of the pasta is going to go over this. Press it down. Make it as compact as you can. So the last 4 halves of the boiled eggs get pressed into here as well. Let's get the rest of the bechamel evenly over the top. And I'm ready now to cover. Take the excess and turn it in to make a beautiful rim, kind of twisting it as you go. Getting the overhang from the top and the bottom together. You do want to make some air holes though. I usually do that with a toothpick. Gently whisk the egg whites and then just brush them lightly over the surface, and when it bakes, it'll have this beautiful shiny finish. It will bake at 375 for 50 minutes to an hour or so. It smells really good. I'm gonna let this cool for about 20 minutes, and then I'm gonna pop open the springform pan and cut myself a nice big slice. This smell is really intoxicating. This is a very generous portion here. The first thing that I'm getting is that soothing flavor of pastry, but it's all spiked by everything else that's going on in here. So it's just this beautiful, complex combination of all sorts of earthy ingredients, and it's no surprise that it's a festive dish. I'm gonna pair this with a full-bodied red wine, and I've chosen a Syrah from the island of Evia. I wanted a wine that could stand up to the complexities in this dish. This has a palate that's very subtly spiced. I'm getting things like cinnamon and a little bit of tobacco and really fine tannins, and it pairs and it stands up beautifully to the richness of my Pastitsio venetsianiko. So isi hian, travel to Corfu, just in the flavors of this dish. I think I've heard and read enough about this very simple salad, the famous orange salad of Corfu.
Nerazzurro salata.
Nerazzurro salata. So salt, right?
Yeah, you know, as much salt as you wish.
The salt brings out the flavor in the orange. Hot paprika.
Yes.
This is beautiful. And olive oil.
And olive oil.
And that's it. That's the salad.
It's elegant, it really cleans the mouth, gives you a nice flavor, and you can go on to the next dish.